Hello, people. This week I read Vampire Hunter D. Now, I don't know when I first heard about this. I feel like it's one of those old school classic animes, like Sailor Moon or something, but I don't think it's that old. I'm not exactly sure. In any case, I knew this to be an anime. I never saw the anime. So I'm assuming it's also a manga, but I've never read the manga. I also don't cover a lot of those on this channel. And by not a lot, I mean none. I have a few. What do I have? I got your old Dragon Ball Z, right? I have Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind over there, right? So I have a few, but I don't cover them because I didn't grow up reading them. Right? So I don't have as good a grip on what's happening there. Right? The impact, it will have an impact, but maybe let's say I don't understand it as much as when I read a normal book. Read tons of normal books. So I feel confident talking about normal books. Well, I'm on my Audible Plus, right? To use that membership while I have it. And I see Monster Hunter D on there. And sort of half of me wonders how you would... I just dropped my pen. And it was red like blood. Hold on. I'm actually going to get it. It's red like blood because it's Vampire Hunter D. Yeah, I have to have the red pen. Half of me wonders how... novelizations in general, I've read a few of them. They're fun to me in a weird way. Because you have, right, an action already. You are trying to make a novel version of a book. I think I did Godzilla. It does extremely well. But part of me wonders how you would do a novelization of something that was comic book form, right? Manga form. Because you get a lot of impact in the visuals. There's a lot of visual gags in anime, the way they do their eyes, etc., that lets you know certain actions are happening, right? So I wondered how some of that would be gotten across. I also wondered about the story in general. I think it was written by the guy who did, the creator, so it's not an outside force. So I can sort of judge the authorship of it. And of course, we look at the writing. So I picked it up. And on Audible, at least at the time of this recording, there were two versions. One was a single narrator, which those are fine. And then there was one that was like a dramatic full cast. I just decided to go full cast this time. I don't normally. Some are a little overdone. Some detract a little. So, y'all decide if that was cheating. Did I cheat adding the extra drama of a multicast? I'm not entirely sure. What I will say is it was fantastic. This book, this, character, this property is fantastic. I'm surprised it doesn't get talked about more, if I'm being honest. It does a lot of things that I like. And it builds, it's not long, it builds extremely well. So what we end up having is, let's say you get vampire fae kind of situation. Fantasy. Mixed with a Western, mixed with sci-fi. Right? And then the sci-fi, like let's say a subcategory, it feels like steampunk future. Right? All sort of blended together perfectly. It's actually very impressive. It's some of the best world building I've read in a hot second. In really a hot second. Now, when I was looking, it said something like there's 33 of these. I don't know. I'm not planning on buying 33 of these bad boys. But I might probably buy the first 2 or 3, if I'm being honest. And like old Westerns, if you're experienced in them. Old Westerns like the Tales of Wells Fargo. You know, they show those on TV sometimes still. You get sort of vignettes, right? So your hero can ride into town. So the beginning is literally rider rides into town. Complete action, a complete build of characters, of relationships with characters, of interactions, and then he just rides out of town, right? And that's the whole entirety of your story. There's nothing left. If you just read the one, if you read any of them, probably in any order, the vignette nature of it holds. So you're not tied, right? You can't start Lord of the Rings right in the middle. You're tied to the first book. You're not tied at all. You could be satisfied with one. You could want, like, I could see how you'd want 33 of them, though, right? So it's a little, in a lot of ways to me, it feels like what The Witcher wanted to feel like. Maybe that's because I had just recently read The Witcher and it's in my head, but that's this just I get. Okay, so we literally start mysterious rider riding into town, and there's a lady on the road, and it says she has a mechanical horse, and so I instantly knew. I'm like, oh, we're gonna feed this out efficiently. Mechanical horse, but it's said in passing like that's normal. This is of course our vampire hunter D. We already know him. He's described as extremely gorgeous, great looking. All the ladies insta like him. But a lot of times in some books that can feel contrived, right? Tacked on, unnecessary. This one does it. It's the myth of the vampire exuding the sensualness, right? There's always been that element to your classic vampire tale. He exudes it. The girl is gorgeous. That's how they describe her. Young. I think they say 17, right? So, the age can get a little, but I think it's not, again, we don't get anything too gratuitous ever. Sexy time speaking, if you're concerned about it. We get close. I'd say it was well, if we showed everything, there's some nudity. So if it were a movie, it'd be, higher rated. But in the action, it never gets above PG-13. Sort of heavy breathing kind of thing. The gore, we get a little more gore. So if that's an issue for you, know that going in. But again, the gore, any kind of sexuality, it's all there to feed the pre-established mythoses. Monsters are supposed to be vicious. Vampires are supposed to be sensual. They have this attraction people have towards them, etc., etc. He doesn't dip on any of it. He seems to grab everything and just merge them together extremely well. He fights the girl, very easy for him. She shows some extraordinary ability. She can't beat him. I think she then wants to hire him. I think she was bit, and then we get into it. Okay, so, and by into it, I mean there's a good chunk. It's one chapter, and we don't, hold on, I'm moving crap. I gotta fix my desk. It is a hot mess out here. Normally, you don't want everything listed to you, right? So a chapter of pure, just like backstory would typically be boring. But we started with action. So I'm already semi-vested. And then the density of the things that I'm getting in chapter 2. I'm just sitting there. I saw this special once on Navy SEAL training, and they like make them almost eat in like 3 minutes. So they're just sitting there chomping food as the line goes, and then they slap the food out, and they gotta throw the rest away, and then they run back out in the rain or something horrific, right? Because they're Navy SEALs, of course. And that's how that's how I treat this chapter 2. It's almost too much to eat. It's almost too much to eat. The world we're given. So you imagine thousands of years have gone by. Humanity's risen to the space age. That interstellar flight, other planets, is normal to us. So it's not new, normalized. It's a thing people do. We're moving all about. I'm thinking Star Trek or something. You know, like we're way out there now. And in the midst of our pinnacle, our peak, the unthinkable happens. War. You got to assume nuclear war. It's a civilization destroying war. Everything crumbles. And it's a narrator simply telling you these things, and he'll cut in every so often with almost like a sports reporter, right? So somebody gets killed, and you're like, how could anyone live through that? Give me this old school radio show feel, right? From the 20s and 30s, this kind of thing. So we have the world that crumbled. Now, obviously, in any situation like this, it's not annihilation. So in my mind, there are pockets of technology that went to space, that did this, that did that. There has to be. And then we follow that. I mean, it's one chapter with the rise of the vampires. So in this crushed world, here comes they come out of hiding. They say, we'll take our rightful spot. We'll rule these people. And I think they rule for like 2,000 years. And I'm just now imagining post-apocalyptic world, space-level tech, and vampires running everything for like 2,000 years. It's already blown my mind. But then they crumble. And the way it's explained is, we're two different entities, right? So vampires don't die. They have all the strength, the powers, right? Some can charm you, some can turn into bats, some can turn into mist, way down to like the Dracula book where he can turn into a mist, where he can quickly bury himself in the ground if he needs, right? All the tricks are still there. All the fantasy element tricks of it. But then it's like, why are they losing? And he describes it as something to the effect of like a zeal or a zest for life itself. That once they're turned into the monster, they lose that spark that eventually humanity wins out as. Right? I've seen this sort of... It's a great concept. It's a great concept that comes over a lot. Humanity's like the tide, the ocean. One wave may not beat you, but wave after wave, eventually, somewhere, someone, this constant drum of humanness, that will to live, eventually dominates. So that's what the world we're in now. After 2,000 years of vampire rule, humanity's now starting to, and the vampires are living the last days of Rome, so to speak, if that makes sense. Their empire's crumbling around them. But they introduced technology, right? I have to imagine, and it doesn't say this, but again, it's right there. You have to imagine that even as the world crumbled, vampires grabbed a bunch of this tech or knew about it. They don't die. So if I have a vampire scientist, he's just going to grab everything they've been. So none of it's technically lost. Vampires have space travel. At some point, they talk about the Vampire Academy of Sciences trying to decipher why it is garlic or the cross affects them in such a negative way. Right? And I'm just like, Vampire Academy of Science, this is genius. My mind just raced in every direction, and every direction it went was happy. it's gorgeous world building. All in one chapter, all just boom right there. Subsequent chapters will then have bits of tech because you already have this baseline, and it's almost playing with the toys, right? So you give me the grand scope, then you show me someone with a laser gun, right? You give me the grand idea, then you show me a vampire's castle with a force field. What is this? Count Magnus Lee has a bunch of robot servants, this kind of thing, right? And it sits next to each other so perfectly now, because I have this 10 to 12,000 year history that's lending its support. It's just so wonderful. I want to go back to the vampire years. I want to read about the vampire wars. I want to read about the war that ended human civilization. Of course, we have damsel in distress. This is your basic story arc, and your perfectly perfect. You know who I imagined could play really good Vampire Hunter D is Tom Hiddleston. Would play it wonderfully. Yes. In any case, constantly pretty Vampire Hunter D. He turns out to be a Dhampir, is what they call him. This is half vampire, half human. Some vampires look down on that. Some of the humans look down on it. He walks around for money and gets rid of monsters. And the monsters include vampires, which are the hardest to kill, but also werewolves. There's also golems, medusas, all sorts of... There's mutants. Of course, radiation hit the earth. Of course there's going to be mutants. On top of the mutations, you have, of course, your vampires scientifically mutating, rearranging. So some monsters from myth and legend, chimeras or whatever, they're out in a lab making them, and because they're just, a vampire could kill it probably easily enough, and they end up in a war against humanity, so they're not really pressed to undo the things they do. So if they make giant evil spiders, they're like, no, giant evil spiders just can roam. What do I care? They're like evil elves, right? Instead of helping humanity, they just make everything worse. So they're the ones they throw werewolves out. When they make new vampires, they might be you're almost catatonic, because the vampire itself, depending on its strength, dependent on its age, of course, may affect you in various degrees. And if you have a strong strength of will, you can be, just more than just like drugged out of your mind waiting for the vampire to come back, right? You just become beholden to them. This is the essence of our story. Our damsel in distress got bit because our Count Magnus saw her beauty, became infatuated. And because he's lived 10,000 years, he doesn't just take what he wants. It now becomes a game, right? It's his weird courtship of her. He wants to make her his wife. All kind of weird plans. But what they do is they're like, I need the girl. If she won't come to me, then I'll start attacking the town. I'll kill people. I'll turn people into zombie vampires. I'll do all manner of vicious things. Of course, towns, some fight against it. Some just sell the girl down the river. It's gone all kinds of ways in the 2,000 years, right? But in this case, our Vampire Hunter D is coming to help her, and she has a strong will herself, so she resisted the Count a couple of times. But he is he's a simp. He can't help it. He loves the girl. He's infatuated. What's the other guy's name? Greco. Here's where you get a lot of the Western feel. He's the son of the mayor, richest guy in town, but he's a moron, a meathead. She doesn't like him, but of course he likes her. And he just sort of... He's a bad guy, so... all the worst ideas he has, and then acts on them. If he has to kidnap her to then force her to marry him, he will. If he could kidnap the brother and force her to marry him, he would, right? He's just not a good guy. But you get a lot of that from your frontierness, right? These bad apples in the frontier. Which, again, even being in the frontier makes me think, what's the city like? What are these shining vampire cities that were built up and maintenanced by robots, and now humans are slowly taking over? Were they human cities that the vampires just inhabit? You know, what was happening? So cool. The Count's daughter, Larmika. Great name, by the way. Larmika. I love it. She shows up because of family pride. She because they, the 2,000 years they ruled, not they particularly, vampires in general. Of course, humanity, you come to be, your generation's deep. And you come to see them not just as vampires, they call them the nobility. They're these, the idea of them almost is still too much of a terror for people. The reality might not be as bad. It can be pretty bad. But sometimes it's not as bad, so. They're seen as highly, right? They're seen highly, but then internally, for this Larmika, she sees herself as a grade above. So the idea of a normal human becoming a member of the family in any way, it just disgusts her. She just refuses to have it. So she goes out to kill the girl. Of course, our vampire hunter D is there. She sends Garu. I think that's how you say it. She sends Garu after him. Dude's a werewolf. And the way they describe it, he's so strong that one leap, right? He can leap at like half the speed of sound or something. Or some mess like this. Just an unviewable blur for a normal person. Massive claws, massive teeth, massive strength. Super quick speed. Of course, Vampire Hunter D, he doesn't just like cut him. He cool with it, right? Just effortless. And almost kills the werewolf. Then he fights the Larmika. And we have a lot of almost mystical fighting levels, right? So if you chuck something at them, they might force field it back to you, or like this one grabbed it and then threw it back. So much so that like the little needle was hot. But of course, he's Vampire Hunter D. He didn't care about the heat. He has all these weird tricks. He has all the things. But even she, like, after one fight, now the Count's daughter is in love with Vampire Hunter D. He's just that much. Women cannot help themselves, right? So you need it in this kind of a story, though. That's the fun part, is that it works in a vampire story. As we're going, weird hints start getting dropped around our boy. At one point, he hears a voice. And even our narrator's like, but who was talking? Who was talking to Dean? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? On with the next chapter. I have to wait. He says a line, transient guests are we. And it affected both the vampires. Like, it scratched an itch that you're like, they remember the ancient, what did they say? What did they call them? The sacred ancestor, who's the first who said those words. And again, it just builds it so well by chapter. Of course, you instantly think, is he the son of Dracula? Right? It's like wicked name dropping. I think that he definitely is, though it never technically says it. Right? Just let the mystery build. He works, he's funner with a mystery. I think at some point, because it bugs both of them, right? It bugs both of them. The Count thinks back to a time when the vampire Academy of Sciences found a way to tell the future, right? And in their algorithm, they punched in how long the vampire nation would last. Then they promptly destroyed the experiment and all the results. So you gotta assume it wasn't good. But we don't know what it was. So the community at large started a big, massive argument. And some of them were saying, clearly we're going to fail, we should step back. The others were saying, clearly it means something, whatever the argument, clashed. And it meant Dracula himself had to make a rare appearance to stop the argument from just, I guess, causing a vampire civil war. And that's his line. That's the line he used. He used transient hosts. Is he hosts or guests? I think he said transient hosts are we. And they didn't, of course, know if it meant vampires or if it meant the humans. They didn't know if it meant aliens are going to come. They don't know what it meant. But they all remember the line. So when Dee says it, it hits this quiet gong in the back of the Count's mind that he doesn't really want to admit to. Until, of course, way later on. He ends up calling him my lord. Larmika calls him my lord. And so I'm pretty sure he's Dracula's kid. Which I don't know how old that makes him. I also don't know how powerful it makes him. But it makes... Okay, because he has a lot of, Mary Sue moments where he's just, is just invincible for no reason. But it makes it make sense because he's Dracula's kid, if that makes any kind of sense. I think the story goes, the way the Count was telling it, which again, point of view, may be biased. The Count said, way long ago, the sacred ancestor became, like him, enamored with a woman. Mina the Fair, they called her. And the story goes that he would have her as his wife, and they kill all the offspring. And it's just... The way they describe it, even vampires like their kids. So, it's a horror, but it's also a strength of will. It's a weird situation because you're not going to question the sacred ancestor. But you do question anyone killing their own kid. But then you don't question the strength it takes to kill your own kid, right? This kind of weird thing. So he's like, did one of those kids not get killed? And is he standing before me calling himself Vampire Hunter D? Right? He never figures out. He gets killed. Larmika goes down. Okay. I think she figures it out. But she also figures out he's not going to pick her. So she's like, if I can't have you... For a while, she's like, no one can have him. Her way of being romantic is either I have him, who I love now, or I'll kill him and I'll eat his heart, basically. Then he'll be part of me. And then I'll be sad forever because he's dead. But then he's also alive in me. And I'm like, this girl's cray-cray. But by the end, she's like... You can sort of see why the vampires lose against humans. She lost this motivation, right? She's like, our era's over, so what's the point? What's the point of eternity? Because he was like, you could just live in this castle and be fine. But she's like, I'm done with all of it. I've seen, your glorious face. And if I can't have love, I want nothing, kind of, so to speak. And maybe it leans into the fact that they are unholy monsters, that they aren't allowed to have love, which is supposed to be pure. And so that they clash with that in some kind of way, right? What they do at the end, though, and it's the castle's falling around them. And I think in the background, because it's an audiobook, I hear in some Tchaikovsky or something, real subtle. Makes it a real epic moment. And she's like, are you Dracula's son? Well, what's your real name? Are you Dracula's son? And it's like before Dee could answer, everything caves in on her. Like very dramatical. We have a Ray Ginsen. Ray Ginsai. I don't know how you say this name. Ray Ginson, I think is what it sounded like in the book. And he's part of the Fiend Corps. It's him, an old witch, a guy who uses bugs, and like a golem or some crap. And they seem nice. He's classy as all get out, but they're bad people that kill. They pretend to be behemoth hunters, which again, how many behemoth monsters are there that can be a job title? I love the world building. They pretend to be behemoth monsters, but then they get semi-infatuated with the girl. And he is a normal person, meaning he doesn't have extra strength or anything, but he's a mutant. His ability is some weird like trans location situation. Forget how they exactly describes it, but if you were to stab him, right? Like, I'm going to stab you in the heart. He would do his ability so that when the knife went into him, it's actually going into you, right? He moves where it ends up. This kind of thing. So he makes them super hard to kill. Of course, D can kill him. But it's cool that there's mutants in this world. I'm like, we could have aliens in this thing. And it'd fit. D ends up killing him by, right, you pretend an attack so that he'll turn his ability on. Then you stab yourself so that the stab goes the reverse to the other guy, right? That's how he ends up dying. Very cool. The tech they live with. I think the girl, what's her name? Doris. Our girl Doris works on a farm on the frontier. But it's like half real animals, half like, you know, like Luke Skywalker's a moisture farmer. They got like crop growing machines that she just maintenances. But this is seen as like farm life. That's just so, I'm like, you made a farm cool. We have a posse show up at some point, and D runs them off. I mean, just D does no wrong in this book. He's just cool. He's all wearing dark. He looks great. Oh, the other thing, the one last thing they have is, I forget what they call it, but it's a chemical of some kind. Put in a candle that when you light it, some kind of essence. God, I should have wrote it down. When you light it, it could make it daytime or nighttime, depending on the candle or how you make it. And you can see the effectiveness of it against vampires or against humans, right? So if you come in the middle of the day and you open their crypt to kill them, it will release this powder or essence and turn day into night. And then he has his full powers and he'll kill the hunter. This has happened a lot in history. I'm like, that's just genius. At one point, they fight D with this, and he, of course, doesn't lose. The girl gets in the way, and to save her, he gets caught in a trap. Right? In any case, they stab him in the heart. It kills humans, it kills vampires, kills them all. But then that voice he was talking, turns out it's his left hand. Now, they don't really explain what the crap's happening with this hand. He talks to it. He tells it, you want to leave. He's like, no, I like hanging out with you. This left hand, when D dies, it like starts eating the ground to get some juice, or it does some kind of maneuver, some kind of thing. Reattaches and like resuscitates your dead vampire hunter D. Even he heals the wound that was made in his heart. So even a stake to the heart might not kill this guy because he has this. And you're like, where in the history of what did you get this? What is this arm that you could talk to it? Kind of it trolls him a little bit, but it brings him back to life. So even when you kill him, he's not dead. But even bringing him back was one of the coolest things in the book. So I'm like, what is this hand? Again, it never really says. It's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of zombie essence of life. I don't know what the crap this thing is. But, you know, D has all the tricks, bro. He knows all the incantations. You ain't doing jack squat to him. You're just lucky he's a good guy. And I think that's part of his story, sort of trying to figure out where he fits in the world. He's clearly killing vampires. Those are his own kind. But if you're the son of the sacred ancestor, maybe it's your right. Maybe you say you're unworthy as a vampire. Maybe that also makes you, worthy to be a king of humans. Maybe you could say these people deserve help or not. In any case, he has the ability, and he's using that ability just to make his way in the world, and I guess, figure out where he stands. He says something about he made a promise, so don't know what that promise is. He comes laden with this history, and it's very, very cool. That's how it ends, right? Like an old Western. It's very self-contained. So if I didn't see Doris or any of these other characters in the next story, and it's just Dee, and he's on Mars, I would accept that the same as I accepted this one. He's a vampire and human, so how long can he live? He can live forever. You can get prequel. You can get sequel. You can be on a different planet. You can be on a spaceship. There's every possibility is open to you as a story writer. It's some of the best world building I've seen. And I'm delighted reading it. And I want to read more of them. I'm going to buy I think I'm going to buy 2 or 3, if I'm being honest. I'm definitely buying this one. I might buy 2 or 3 if I'm being honest. And I might look into, the anime and the printed comic version, the manga version. Not exactly sure. I'm going to check it out. But I absolutely love this story. The way it's presented, the speed that it goes with. It's not long, but it is dense. Okay, that's Vampire Hunter D. And this is your ad time. These are my books. These are how I am wanting to help the channel, obviously. If you like, you can just watch. If you subscribe, I'll be okay with that. If you want to buy a book, I'm happy with that. If you don't want to buy the book, but still want to read them, I think they're all on the Kindle Unlimited, at least of the time of this filming. And you can get the Kindle Unlimited, read mine, and read a bunch of other books. And it'd definitely be worth, whatever it, $5 or $9. I think it's $5 last time I checked. Definitely be worth that for that service for a while. Now, I don't get money for you signing up for Kindle Unlimited. I don't have that. I'll gladly take it, Amazon. Sponsorship. I don't have any kind of sponsorship like that. But I think like Spotify, I would get money if you read the book through their unlimited program. So you will still be helping the channel. However you want to do it, I'm fine with it all. I'm going to read these books anyway. I'm going to yap about them anyway. So I think this works for everybody. Okay, people. I talk to you lovely lot next week.